It's your favorite day of the week. That means the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast with Nick and Amy. And today's episode is going to be a great one. Amy and I have been talking a lot lately, and maybe it's just because we're in that age group, right? But we've been
We're
talking a
approaching it.
lot of
Yeah.
just how things are changing with our friends and people that we know,
And with his own wife.
and with my own wife, and trying to understand,
Her.
do I
Me.
move? Do I move out for a few years? Do I? No, I'm totally
He's
joking, of
joking.
course. But we've got a great guest on today, Jesse, and we're going to talk to him about perimenopause. And we found him on Instagram and have been watching a bunch of his videos, and he is phenomenal. And so we hope all of you enjoy this podcast today. We really think you will because this is all obviously a very important subject as well. So
Yeah.
welcome to the podcast. We're extremely excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I love what you are all doing as well. And I think this is a great fit. So I'm excited to talk with you.
Thanks.
All right, so jumping right out of the gate, if you don't mind, I'll ask this
Yes.
first question, and then I'll let you just take it over. But I
Okay.
gotta ask, like, how did you get into this? Because you're a husband talking about perimenopause and
Yep.
And
educating
menopause.
and
Mhm.
menopause.
Yep.
You're educating other men, which is awesome. But like, what got you into doing this or feeling like that there was a need? What experience did you have?
I had no idea there was a need. I had no idea about menopause, and I had no plan to do this whatsoever.
Oh,
So we'll
Okay.
start there.
That's kind of what I
But
guessed.
as is very, there's a lot of cool things that start that way, and I guess this is just one of them. So as the story goes, basically, I started a channel, I think in February, about mid-February of this year. Started TikTok, and I was talking about parenting. So I'm a husband, father of a 14-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son, and I thought, oh, this social media thing, I can do that, right? But what am I going to talk about? I was like, well, I'm a parent, so I'll talk about that. And then I actually had a couple of interesting things happen at kids' school, so I do a little post, and I did that for about a month, and I was sort of trickling along. And then I'm driving home from work, and I'm listening to a podcast, and Dr. Mary Claire Haver, who's a leading expert in this space, is the guest on the show. And for whatever reason, I don't change the channel. And I'm going to be honest, like I just maybe I got distracted, whatever. It just played.
Mhm.
And I'm on my commute home and I just out of nowhere it's sort of one of those things where you're like, wait, what? What did she just say? Wait, women are what's going on with women right now? What is this?
oh,
Mhm.
And I got in like 3 minutes, I got glued to what she was saying. And I'm sitting there driving and I'm like, no, no, come on. This isn't really, and then it was every little thing that she said was one other thing that I was just like this. So of course I started to get to the point where now I'm listening to this so intently. I'm thinking about my wife, I'm thinking about my daughter, and because I'm hearing about women don't have support, women are suffering alone, doctors aren't even trained to support them. My sister's an ER doctor, so I'm thinking, well, I'm going to call her, and which I've done, but I slept on it that night, and the next day I just said, you know what? I gotta try something. And I kind of pulled my phone out like this, right? And I sat in my car and I'm like, do women want their husbands to talk to them about menopause? Like that was basically my post. And I was like, okay, well, I'm done on social media. Like that's gonna be it, right?
yeah.
And yeah, I was just
Went viral.
well, that was a stupid move, right? And then there goes my TikTok channel. But the exact opposite happened. Women immediately were like, "Absolutely, we are suffering. We don't have the support we need. We need more awareness on this." And I couldn't even believe that, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is a bigger thing than I realized. And I'm also 48 years old. It's like, how have I not heard about this? I've been married for 18 years. I've never once had a conversation with another man. Never.
Yeah.
I've never once even had a conversation with my wife. I've never heard about it from my sister. I don't, what is going on? It's affecting a billion people, a billion women on the planet. And here we are, like us men, us guys, just cruising along, and we have no idea this is happening right in front of our face. And so I became obsessed with this, and it was the only thing I wanted to talk about. The parenting thing was over. I just started just diving in and researching and learning as much as I could. I read Dr. Haver's book. I've listened to all these podcasts. I've read articles and I've looked at research papers and I've checked out, history on women's studies from the 70s and the 90s and all of it, man.
Awesome.
I'm loving it. But I mean, I'm super passionate about it. And then, of course, which I'm sure we'll get into, as this continued, it's only motivated me more because I now have been hearing from so many women about how important this is. And then I've also been hearing from guys about how much this is helping. And so I'm really excited about what's been going on.
Love it. I love it. And who loves it even more is all the women that you're helping and all the husbands that you're helping and all the marriages that you're saving, right? Like it's a really serious topic.
Because as husbands, we know something's going on, but we don't know what, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, a lot of time they don't know. They don't know something's going on.
I think that's
a lot of women
yeah.
hide, right?
Right. Well, like I remember I rolled over in the middle of the night. This was before I started learning about this, but I remember rolling over in the middle of the night. It's just one of those things that catches your attention. I roll over, I'm fully bundled up, and my wife has no covers on at all. And I just it's one of those weird things where I remember that moment. I can kind of still picture it where I remember having this middle of the night going, huh, that's odd. But then, of course, you just let it go and then I learn about hot flashes and temperature regulation and all these things later. And then I go back and I'm like, oh,
we had one
right.
of those the other night. We were laying in bed and put my arms around her and she is soaking wet.
Yeah.
Did you just jump in the pool? I've been here, but I didn't see you get in the pool.
The crazy thing about this whole thing is like, yeah, you can see the visual signs, but there's so many emotional and mental things going on too, right? And that's kind of what I want to like dive into today because
Yeah.
it's easy to be like, oh, this is happening or this is happening, but like a lot of husbands don't see all the other stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
and I just want to say to all the listeners, whether you are in your 20s or 30s, this is common. If you're in your 40s, you're starting it. Maybe you're already into it. In the 50s, they say that that is like one of the biggest divorce rate areas,
Mm-hmm.
with marriage because this hits so hard and so fast and it's so not understood. So anyways, thanks for like making light of this and being willing to talk about it. There's not a lot of guys that are going to go show up on TikTok talking about menopause. Like it's amazing. That's why you're catching attention. It was because it's like the husbands want to know, the wives are like, somebody understands me, and it's amazing. So you already asked the first question I was going to ask, but you said in one of your videos, it kind of can be like, quote, I think you said this, kind of like hell for a lot of women, this time span, right? And I was just wondering, what can you teach us about the whole hormones? Why are we losing them? What's happening in the female body? Because I watched one of your videos, I'm like, dang, he's really smart. I think he knows more than me, and I'm a woman. So share some of your knowledge just on, just kind of the basis about what is happening, when it starts happening, and yeah, why we think we're going crazy and why our husbands think we're going crazy too, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously a lot to unpack there, but basically just to help husbands understand how did we get here, right? And it actually, interestingly enough, why anthropologically menopause is happening, scientists are arguing about that still today. So I can't take you all the way back to the dawn of humans because while it's well believed that this was happening then too, the age in which it was taking place could have changed, but they're still arguing about why, and what the purpose was. But let's just fast forward to present day. So here's what's happening. So, I'll be talking to a husband, basically, Nick, right? Like when your wife was born, she was born with 1 to 2 million eggs in her ovaries. And those eggs are being supported by three really important hormones: estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. They all have different roles. They do intertwine with each other, but ultimately they have everything to do with temperature regulation, to mood regulation, to serotonin levels in your brain, to dopamine levels in your brain, your feel-good chemicals, everything from vascular health, the blood flow, so many other effects, right? There's estrogen receptors in literally everywhere in a woman's body. So it's a physical thing. It's also a mental thing. And these hormones are protecting these, or influencing these 1 to 2 million eggs. By the time she reaches puberty, she's down to 3 to 500,000. She's not making any more from the time in which she's born. So that's it, right?
Crazy.
Mhm.
Then by the time she gets into her 30s, she's starting to what ends up happening, and they'll say perimenopause. Last I checked, I believe the average age range was more like 40 to 44. But you're going to hear from a lot of women, at least I do, that say that it started absolutely in their 30s.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And there
Wow.
was one point where I said it can start as soon as 35, and then a lot of women were like, "That's hilarious! It started when I was 30. It
Oh,
started
Wow.
when I was
yeah.
31." Right? So it can start way sooner than guys think. And the reason why that's happening or what is happening at that point is she has lost so many of these eggs as they've continued to decline that by the time she gets into her 30s, the hormones that are supporting those eggs, rather than being constant, they start fluctuating pretty wildly, right? And when that starts to happen, now you start to get the disruptions in what those hormones were influencing in her body. So that's things like weight gain, anxiety, or mood control, right? Temperature control. So this is where the hot flashes come in. When estrogen drops, cortisol spikes. So that's where a lot of the anxiety comes in. These things lead to things like insomnia, brain fog, memory loss can come from, affecting her executive functioning in her brain, areas that determine focus and memory. So all of this starts to hit as they start to fluctuate, but these eggs are still going. And as she gets into her 40s, now she's lost even more. The sort of call it the condition. I'm not sure what the right medical word is, but let's say the condition or the efficacy of these eggs has started to really decline. This is why pregnancy becomes that much more difficult because it's not just the number of eggs that she has left, but it's also the quality of those eggs, right? And then when she finally hits menopause, which is one day, this is what doctors can, in fact, absolutely test for, which is one day or the day, 12 months after your last period, is menopause.
Wow.
Menopause is a day. Now, we use menopause in conversation to sort of encapsulate all of this, even though menopause itself is a day. You have perimenopause before that, and you have postmenopause after that. By the time a woman hits that one day, she's lost over 99% of the amount of estrogen she had in her body when she was 25 years old. So, the way I describe it to men who are trying to wrap their heads around this, right? I'm just like, okay, so estrogen is, well, there's a couple ways. One, I'll go scientific for a second. I use scientific in quotes because I'm not a doctor nor a scientist. But my understanding of my bro science tells me that basically what is happening is when she was pregnant, or I think about my wife, right? Radiant, glowing hair, okay, radiant skin, just in a good mood, feeling beautiful, feeling great, right? That's estrogen, man. That's estrogen and progesterone. That's what it's doing. Okay, now fast forward to these periods of time that we were just talking about, and imagine all of that was causing that is now no longer there.
Right.
So now the opposite happens. She doesn't feel great. Her hair is thinning. Her mood is changing. Her weight is gaining. Like these are the opposite effects, right? Her vascular health is declining, so she doesn't have this glowing skin. All of that, right? Or I'll say, all right, guys, check this out. I want you to think about your wife's body like your car. You have oil in your car. When that oil level goes down, the car still runs, but it just doesn't run as well as it used to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's estrogen, right? The difference is you go get an oil change.
Right.
She's losing all this estrogen for life,
Yeah.
right? She doesn't get those eggs back. The only way that happens is through hormone replacement therapy, which is a whole nother thing. But this is what guys need to start wrap their heads around. And the one thing that I didn't say that's a huge part of this, and what I'm actually seeing more recently in some comments, both from men and women, is intimacy, is libido, is sex drive. It's not a huge shock to me now. I guess I could have probably even predicted this in the beginning. Like if there's going to be any one thing that guys hone in on as like, help me figure this out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
it's that. It's that.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, this is Ultimate Intimacy Podcast. I'm guaranteed that, I mean, this is what we talk about is intimacy, right?
Well,
So
and the emails we get too are just like crazy.
yeah, and so like, how
Mm.
do I help her do? How do I help her through this time, right? Like libido
Yep.
is dropping, and we are that couple, so we talk about it often. But
Yeah. It is not a huge surprise, but it is wild how much attention that is getting, right? Because there are so many other things. Like I'll listen to some men, and it's not to dismiss that talking about the effect of the libido isn't a real thing. I mean, we're
right,
talking about a marriage that's important, keeping connection and everything healthy, hugely important. It's just interesting to me that in the long list of things that are going on with her, that would include not only painful symptoms physically, but also incredibly difficult symptoms mentally. The one
mhm,
thing that guys seem to just latch onto is, but she won't have sex with me.
yeah,
Can you help me with that? And I'm just like, okay, important, but let's not dismiss
right,
everything else that she's going through. But the what I hear from women is either HRT is the answer for them and
Hmm.
hormone replacement therapy. There's a lot to talk about there. It is not for every woman, nor can every woman qualify for it,
Yeah.
nor
right,
should every woman even have it.
right.
There's also cost implications, insurance implications, a number of different things. So it's not an easy flip of the switch solution as many men would like to think. Though for the women who do it and have taken it, they have told me in the comments it's been a game changer,
Right.
and it's been a
Yeah.
game changer with
Mhm.
Libya.
Oh, we hear that all the time.
Yeah. In fact, we had one lady tell us that now her husband's the one curled up in the corner. Not tonight, honey. I can't do it again. And it's funny. Her comment was, she told us, she's like, I never knew what he felt like almost on a daily basis, right? Like
Mm,
if I would have ever known, I
Right.
never would have denied him. But the point I'm trying to make with that is, like you talked about, hormone therapy for a lot of women can work exceptionally well. And, you know,
Okay, I love that you said it's not all about that. The husbands need to realize all the other stuff going on because when you're patient, when you try to be understanding, when you're someone like you and you're like, I want to learn what you're going through, that is like super attractive and super romantic as a husband to do. That he
yep.
cares about like what are all these other things that you're going through and why it's not just all about libido, right? So thank you for doing what you're doing and educating men because they're all those things that you mentioned. You actually talked about on one of your videos, you said there are 5 hidden symptoms that women are going through, and just wondering how if we could talk about those 5 things. I think one of like mental load and anxiety, whatever.
Yep.
Um, if we could just talk about how it's affecting the marriage relationships that you see.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, and it links actually those types of things link directly to libido,
Right,
right?
right.
And I think
Absolutely.
that's the connection that
Mhm.
I really want husbands to understand. So, for example, the things that husbands can see
Mhm.
are she's going to potentially gain weight. She's going to gain weight often in the midsection. The reason is that estrogen is responsible for weight distribution in the body, specifically in the midsection is where the estrogen loss is going to cause that weight. And the thing about that weight is it's actually visceral fat, which is actually fat internally around the organs. It's not subcutaneous fat, which is like this, right?
hmm.
So it's not fat that responds to calories in, calories out. So you get like this, you can go get on the treadmill, or you can eat less Snickers, or whatever. You get visceral fat, it actually responds to hormone changes. It's not, you can't go run that off the same way.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right.
So guys see things like that, right? Frozen shoulder, right? Because she's losing estrogen, which is a natural lubricant in the body, which absolutely affects libido as well because dry vagina becomes on the scene.
Mhm.
Um, but now she's got a locked up shoulder. So these are the things that men can see. But what men don't see, and I figured this out down the road. This wasn't the first thing I started learning about was like everybody else, mood swings and hot flashes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You
Right.
then I started learning about frozen shoulder, and then I started learning about the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. The mental side of this came later. As more women started to explain to me, I think my TikTok channel has over 120,000 comments in the
Wow.
last 6-ish months.
That's
Um,
awesome.
Well, it is awesome. And the
But
reason why
people
it's
are,
awesome,
women are
Yeah.
struggling big time.
I mean,
they're
that means
struggling
people
big
want to
time.
learn about it, right?
It's a great database. I
Yeah.
mean, it's, I was asked, where do you get your information? I was like, well, I've read this book and I've listened to this, whatever. But at the end of the day, I've got 120,000 comments on TikTok of
That's how
women
we
sharing
feel.
their
Which is
experience.
more important than anything. I mean, that's the
Right.
best feedback you can get.
It's incredible. And that is where I started to learn about the things that husbands don't see. That's where I started to understand things around anxiety, depression. And then I'd start researching that. That's kind of what happens, right? I learn something from women and then I run along and research it. And, 1 in 10 women have suicidal thoughts. That was a statistic that I read.
Wow.
20% of women have clinically depressive symptoms in menopause. That was a statistic that I read. 80% of women don't talk about this, which is why they're suffering in silence. That's something that I've read, right? So men aren't seeing those suicidal thoughts. Men aren't seeing those clinically depressive symptoms necessarily. Men aren't seeing the fact that she wants to talk about this and that she's in pain and this is hard, but she doesn't know how to talk about it. Men, and which, by the way, leads into what we were just talking about, but that was a real sort of head scratcher for me. I was like, what do you mean you don't want to talk about this? Why wouldn't you want to talk? Like, I would be screaming from the rooftops if I'm going through this stuff, right? But then I started learning from women on my channel about things like shame, about things like grief, about the confusion around feeling like she has dementia because of what's going on, that the loss of this estrogen, the loss of the serotonin levels, the dopamine levels, the things that are affecting that type of thinking. Does she have dementia? No. But does she feel like it?
Yes, she
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
she
he
feels
feels like
like
it too, but he's not going through
Yeah.
it.
I'm almost 50. That's,
Yeah. You and me, man. Like so I was thinking to myself, okay, I've got to try to make this connection, and this ladders back to libido, but I've got to try to make this connection for husbands that they can't just get off easy with mood swings and hot flashes, which aren't easy, but that's the write-off. Like, oh yeah, mood swings, yeah, hot flashes. I understand menopause.
Yeah.
It's like it's okay. So we got to get past that. Then we also got to get past these physical things because those are the easy things to see and understand, wrap your head around. It's like
Right.
tangible versus intangible.
mhm.
Like I can hold on to that frozen shoulder. I get it.
Yeah.
Right? I've hurt my shoulder too. I get it. But what you can't hold on to is things like a woman has shame around talking about menopause because she knows that she's not meeting the societal expectations that she has been around for all of this time. Beauty, how she's supposed to act, how she's supposed to show up for her kids, how she's supposed to show up amongst her friends, right? These types of things that a woman feels aren't things that I understood until I started learning about this. And then that mental load that a woman carries without menopause, but just carries this I'm going to help everyone and everything around me load, right? Understanding like, oh yeah, guys like me, when was the last time you handled an email for the school? When was the last time you made sure the kids had their prescriptions? When was the last time you set a doctor's appointment? When did you last follow up with the vet for the dog? Right? And that's just those things. These are, not to mention dishes, laundry, blah, 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 blah. You can go on and on and on. And she's got, by the way, fun fact, women are peaking in their career statistically by salary at 44, which is right at the height of dealing with all of these symptoms. So she's at the top of her job. And oh, by the way, statistically, by 49, she's got an empty nester. So now she's dealt with the grief of her kids moving out of the house.
Which men I
It's
don't think understand.
not at all. Totally not at all.
They're like excited for the kids to get out, and we're like,
Yeah,
oh.
we're like, but yeah. So anyway, the point is, how do you get men to understand not just the symptoms of menopause, but the context in which it's happening? And then how do you link all that to an even greater understanding of what it's like to be a woman,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right? Like there's levels to this. And so all of that didn't happen at once. It's all been part of this journey that I've been on. But what's cool is that I found you don't need to be an expert in this. And I'm not one. Like, but literally a guy, I have this thought in my head where by now I've made so many like 60-second videos where I'm just thinking, just if you're a guy, spend 5 minutes, pick any five you want and then tell me that you aren't more curious about this or
Yeah.
tell me that you don't think that this is important, right? And I hope guys do that
I hope
because
they
I
do
think that
too.
that's how they understand, this connection, and then they'll start thinking a little bit beyond libido and intimacy. But the one thing that you were saying, Amy, that I think is this is I literally was writing this to a guy who had maybe yesterday reached out to me saying, help me figure this out with my wife. She just keeps saying no. I'm trying to be understanding, etc. And I can tell you right now, personally, in my marriage, the one aha moment that hit me some months ago, which is again sad at 48, but here I am. I'll be vulnerable. I probably should have known this a while back,
Oh,
but I had totally misunderstood how important it is for a woman to be relaxed in order to be in the mood. I just didn't link those two things together. You know what I mean? I'm just
it's
like,
like almost impossible.
Yeah. I mean,
it's literally
It's
impossible,
it's
right?
impossible with our brain, yeah.
we talk about this all the time. I
We
mean,
have 100 tabs open and men can have one tab open. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's
It's
crazy.
insane. It's
yeah,
insane. And then another thing we didn't even talk about was waking up at 2 or 3 a.m., all those tabs opening and not being able to go back to sleep, right?
Yeah,
Like, and then you get lack of sleep. You add that on top of it and you're like, now I don't sleep either, you know?
100%. Yeah, and so and then you have everything from irritability to just
right.
exhaustion. I was telling this guy, I was like, okay, here's what I've learned, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around this myself. But here's what I've learned. If you want a chance to recover that intimacy with your wife in menopause, you have to solve for overwhelm, mental load, relaxation, right? You solve those and you've got a good shot. But you can't solve those by saying, why don't you want to sleep with me?
Mhm.
Why don't you want it? What happened to you? Why are you being like this? Right? That's not gonna give that's just gonna make everything worse. So it's kind of almost like, and this is why I think it's really hard for guys to get their heads around this, because in order to get this, you actually have to solve these things and it will result in this, right? But like you can't go try to solve this,
Mhm.
right? So this intimacy itself is the this. You can't go try to solve that in bed with her at the moment in which you want to get down. What you needed to do was for the last probably 3 days, if not forever, right?
Years.
Have done these other things that have made her feel relaxed, feel like she's being supported, feel like she's being loved and cared for, feel like you're a partner, feel like you're in this with her. All of those, if you achieve that, you're going to achieve intimacy even in menopause.
Mhm. Agreed.
That's the that's sort of the aha for me, right? Like that took me longer than I'd like to admit, but I got there. Like,
But you're
I
making
think
up for it for like teaching so many people, right? Like,
I hope so.
great. So great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mental load is a whole nother topic. I guess
Yeah.
we need to have you back on for that.
Yes.
We do get a lot of husbands that will say, "Well, I have a mental load too. It's different. It's
Yeah.
different." And although I
Mm.
do agree with that, it's different, right? Like
It's
we're built different.
It's funny you say that because you guys have hit on at least three things that I've made a post on within the last 24 hours that I haven't yet posted.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah,
You
that's
guys,
awesome.
yeah, I might have to
Well,
hold on to
we
these.
try
Uh,
really hard on all of our stuff and on our podcast to talk both sides, right? Like
Yeah,
always,
yep,
like it's about both people coming together, both people's needs equally important. And both people do have a mental load. They are just very, very different. And it always comes down to communication, right? Like all these
right.
things. We did an interview with a really amazing therapist that we just love about a month ago. And we were talking about libido, right? And he said, libido is emotional. Libido is emotion. It is tied for women, it is tied to their emotions. So everything that you just said,
Yeah.
making her feel safe, supported, relaxed, all those things, like that is what you're exactly talking about. Libido is emotional. When you can cover and help us feel all those things and feel like a partner and take some of those tabs off of us, like that is when our libido comes back. I love it. Like
Yeah.
perfect, perfectly
100%.
said.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I what I and I'm glad you said that because I am trying to focus and I'll admit I have really tried to focus on educating men from the standpoint of saying I need to make you understand that this is way bigger and more serious than you think if you've even thought about it.
Right.
And there is a bit of a tonality. And it changes from post to post. And sometimes it's like sometimes I read some really, shitty comment from
Oh
a
yeah.
husband,
Mhm.
and then I'm not happy. And then I make a TikTok post and you'll hear it in my voice. Like
Oh,
I'll
we're the
be,
same way.
Yeah. Same
and,
thing.
and so and then other times I've read a really tough post and or comments, and then I make a much, anyway, the tonality of in general though does have a bit of a sense of urgency to it because I need husbands to understand this because I'm really passionate about the idea that there's way more husbands out there like guys like you and me, Nick, who if we knew more about this, we would want to do something about it.
For
And so
Right.
sure.
to me, it's like, and then I realize that there's a group of husbands out there that I'm probably not going to,
Yeah, they don't care.
They
they
don't
Right.
don't
care.
care.
Right.
They're
And
Right.
selfish. Yeah.
I did not, unfortunately, I did not. That's kind of been one of the tragic effects of the positivity that's also been going on with what I've been doing is I've learned a little bit about men
Mhm.
that I just, I don't hang out with those people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
just didn't know that they were really out there like this. And I didn't know that they were capable of saying the things that,
Oh, there's
They're out
there's
there.
absolutely vicious people, right? There's
it's
like
wild.
unbelievable. Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah. So but I don't want men to feel like I don't think that their wife going through menopause doesn't affect them and that they should only, right? Like
Right.
it is both ways. And
It
it and
absolutely is both ways.
Well,
and
I
it
think the
does
way
affect.
it, I think the way it affects men is, most men feel loved through the intimate connection, right? So also all of a sudden that's completely cut off, and a guy's like, why doesn't my wife desire me? Does she not love me? And a lot of times our self-worth, our drive,
Mhm.
our confidence is tied to our wife desiring us, right? And we talk about that all the time too. And so I think, these men out here pleading. I think, number one, educating them like you're talking about. And then number two, getting a husband and wife to be able to communicate about it. Because, you can have the education, but if you're not talking about it,
Right.
it's going to be tough to get through that. So having those tough discussions and saying, hey, I'm really trying to understand how you're feeling. Help me understand what I can do to make your burden light
Mhm.
and to make you more comfortable. Just again having those good discussions because Amy and I are big believers that almost anything can be resolved with good communication, right? It might not mean you get exactly what you want, or you might not totally understand where your spouse is coming from, but if you're talking about it and trying to understand where they're coming from, why they feel the way they do, it just makes it a lot easier.
And I do feel, since we're on this topic of equality, like I do feel like women, and I'm a wife, I get this, have to take some responsibility. Like we have to be willing to be honest and be open and vulnerable. Like this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going for. This is what I'm suffering with. Not trying to hide it. Like, a lot of men try to like be tough and hide their emotions and vulnerability. I think women do that too a lot of the times. We need to be open and we need to be honest. Like when I started trying to teach him, like, I mean, you've seen all the mental load
Yeah.
videos. That is a whole nother situation. A lot of feminists taken over that, so it's not absolutely helping people in all cases. But when I started coming to my husband, like, this is what it feels like. This is what having 4 kids with 7 different teachers feels like on my email and my schedule and my tabs, right? Like trying to just express that. And this is what it feels like to have to think about, okay, I fed the kids breakfast and now I gotta plan make sure there's stuff in the fridge for lunches. But now it's 4 o'clock and I gotta be thinking about dinner all the time. When you can express that and be like, will you trade me for a week and take on some of this stuff? Like when we started doing that, he's like, holy crap, like, yeah, I can see why this becomes stressful to you, right?
Mhm.
So it all comes down to please talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please talk about it. Please try and get educated. Educate your husband, educate yourself. I'm trying to get more educated about the things I'm going through or going to be going through so I can educate my daughters. We have 3 daughters still at home, right? They're going to be hitting this in their life. My mom never talked to me about it. Like, I
Well,
love that you're doing this. You're making awareness with it. The mental load stuff has been made so much aware, but this is another subject that really needs to be touched on, and it's really, really affecting relationships.
yeah, and I think what's important too is rather than just saying, well, this is what I'm going through, therefore this is how I'm feeling, and you just have to deal with it. I think if couples can look at it and say, hey, what you're dealing with or what I'm dealing with, how do we work together as a team to deal
Right.
with what we're going through, whatever that is, right? So
Mhm.
as a wife's going through these things, rather than feeling like, oh, I've just got to deal with these are issues that I'm going through, if couples can talk about it and say, hey, I know you're not feeling good. I know you're going through these things. How can we work together as a team to try to help you be more comfortable through this process? And can we go look at these options or go look at these options as well, and try to tackle that together as a team rather than just women using that as an excuse to say, you know, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Stay away from me.
Yeah, and you can't just it's I had one guy reach out to me. I gave him something I'll share with you in a minute, and then he goes, "Well, that didn't work." And I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
probably not the first time.
Right.
You can't
Yeah, it's
it's
a
sort of
it's an
like
ongoing thing, right?
right, and it's a prove it, it's a show it,
A
right?
lifestyle.
It's a demonstrate it, it's a live it. Everything that you just described, you don't just sit down at the kitchen counter and be like, okay, so here's the deal. All right. I feel stuff, you feel stuff. I get that you feel
Right.
stuff. I hope that you don't feel too much stuff. Can we have sex?
We're all
Like
good
it's a
then.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's and so I I what I was trying to help him understand was exactly what we're talking about right now. And I think a lot of the marriages that you brought up, Amy, earlier, a lot of the divorces that take place, I read a statistic, over 60% of divorces happen between the ages of 40 and 60 for women.
Mhm.
73% of the women in those divorces actually attributed menopause to a cause of their divorce, one of the causes. Where does that come from? Well, you can probably unwind that without knowing their stories and say, I bet they were arguing.
Yeah.
I bet they weren't communicating well. I
Right.
bet this started at a place where it wasn't a big deal and then it became this. It
For
didn't
sure.
just appear that way,
Right.
right? So then what could have happened differently along the way? And one of the things that I found is it is harder to argue with somebody's feelings. So if I tell you that your behavior is a problem, then you are going to get defensive, and then we are going to argue about whether or not, in fact, that behavior is or isn't a
Yeah.
problem.
Right.
If I tell you that when these things are going on, it makes me feel a certain way, that's how I feel,
Mhm.
right? And you can't, it's harder to argue with somebody's feelings and how they feel because it's how they feel.
We see it
Um,
all the time.
Yeah, we do.
and I think that that's a really important way in which you can start one of these conversations and open up one of these conversations
Right.
because and then of course it's a two-way street, right? Well, I would keep this conversation going in a way that she would then say, well, okay, but when you judge me for these things that are out of my control, I'm doing the best I can, but when I feel like when I hear that I don't have your support, it makes me feel like you don't love me anymore,
Right.
right? If you can get to that,
Mhm.
Oh
that
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going to be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's true.
You know,
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Patience and
100%.
understanding, right? Just trying to
yeah,
understand your spouse's sides. It really just comes down to that
So we
yeah,
preach all the time. If you can
all the time.
communicate, you can get through about anything.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, my questions are answered. I
Oh,
have a whole list and you covered every single one of them. So
yeah,
I think it's just really important for husbands to be patient during this. Like we don't know what's going on, half of us, you know. Husbands don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And
There's so much
this is a
confusion.
time period that requires a ton of patience.
There's no doubt. There's so much confusion. It's
Mhm.
nothing about anything historically that has led us to
Right.
this point has helped.
Yeah.
With how women have been prioritized in the medical system to, anything, the inequalities there with men and women. The fact that the previous generation didn't talk to this generation, so on and so forth. What I feel pretty good about, though, is I think we're breaking this cycle. And this cycle has been going on for a long time and it's been going on for way too long. It's I find it hard to believe. I truly do. That let's call it 20 years from now, from my 14-year-old daughter. She's in her early to mid 30s. I cannot picture a world that looks then like it does now for
Mhm.
women around menopause.
Agreed.
I'm 100% sure that it will be better.
Yeah.
That doctors will be trained. It'll be something that they can talk openly about. But we only get there by doing exactly what we're doing right now.
That's the one amazing thing about social media.
Yeah,
I hate social media. There's a lot of negative things about it. But one thing is learning and opening up education around topics that are not typically discussed, right? And I think that women are different now. I think they're becoming more vocal. We're working outside of the home unlike we used to 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? Like things are
sure.
just changing and women are starting to voice more. And I think men are starting to accept, I mean, just the whole, just, I don't know, everything just seems like it's changing. I agree with
Yeah.
you. I think social media, what you're doing, what a lot of people are trying to do just to help others, everything's
Mhm.
just coming to light. And yeah,
Yep.
I agree with you. And I hope that's true for my daughters, you know,
Yeah.
Yep,
same
100%.
ages. Yep.
So if you're a couple out there listening to this podcast and you feel like you're going through a lot of the things that he's talking about, number one, hopefully this podcast can be a great help to you, but also, get educated about this.
Mhm.
Here in just a sec, we'll have Jesse share where, they can watch the videos and become more educated about this. But educate yourself, number one. And number two, have this conversation. You hear Amy and I talk about it all the time, probably too much, but sit down with your spouse and have these tough conversations
Mhm.
because the more you do these, so many of us are terrified to have these conversations.
Right.
But once you do it, it's like, man, that wasn't that bad. And things are so
Mhm.
much better after talking about it. And so, we really appreciate you coming on. We're definitely going to have you on again to dive in even more, like Amy
We need
said.
to dive into anxiety.
But share with our audience where they can find you and your videos, learn more about this a very important subject.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both again. Husbands for Menopause, the number four in the middle. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I'd love to be back.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks
Well,
for your time tonight.
yeah, thank you again so much. And to all of you, until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.